Honestly, I can't count to 5 in my head. Like, hello and welcome to The Boy and the Bear. With the January transfer window being open, both clubs playing across multiple competitions, and some big news coming out of the women's game. I am joined as always by Paddy Boy. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Yeah, how are you?
I'm very well, mate, as always. And I welcome back to our little blue bear, Scotty. Missed the last episode, mate. You all good?
I'm
back
good.
Were you jolly?
It's been great. What a time to leave some sunshine and then come back to your bright-eyed pusses, eh? What a time to be alive.
Anybody who tunes into our content via video stream will realise that we've finally worn Scott down, and he has indeed purchased a blue light.
Peer pressure's a great thing, boys, eh?
Well, listen, boys, straight into it. Long-awaited compliments, please. Pat, you've been getting itchy feet giving Scotty's one, so on you go.
Yeah, compliment for Rangers this week. It's a genuine one, Scott, but correct me if I'm wrong, because my understanding of the Rangers team lineup is not as good as yours, obviously. But it looked as if against Fraserburgh in the Cup, you actually played some youth players.
Yes.
I mean, we were going on about that in the previous episode that you were on, bemoaning the lack of opportunities for young, players within these academies. So a compliment to Rangers as well done for playing them, albeit against Fraserburgh. But I mean, I saw Celtic play against Bucky Thistle and didn't see any young lads playing. So fair play to Rangers.
Thank you. I think just to kind of go back to your point, I think if you can't play against Highland or lowland league opposition, you're not really going to get an opportunity, or you're not going to be able to play Rangers or Celtic. So it was nice to see them.
Yeah, a lot of those boys play for the B team anyway, don't they? So they're used to playing those sorts of teams. That's obviously the leagues they operate in anyway.
I think the last time they played Fraser, they beat them 5-0.
Yeah,
the B team. So I thought it was good to see, and I hope that going forward we see more.
Not sure how well they played, but I mean,
no, but it doesn't matter.
Or whether you want to be really playing for Rangers, considering you boo players who score hat tricks for you.
Yeah, and don't forget to captain the side who score hat tricks. Just add another knife to Cyril Desser's back.
What an institution!
It's a great institution.
You're a compliment for Pat, please.
It's good to see that you guys bounce back and haven't been beaten since your old firm drubbing. So that was good. Well done, boys. That's amazing. But no, in all seriousness, it could have been one of those results where you go into expecting to steamroll Rangers because of how Jekyll and Hyde we've been, and you get turned over. That could have quite easily caused us a bit of a slip up.
Yeah, you could only been 6 points clear.
Yeah, well, but you could have opened the door. But the door has firmly been shut, so...
Well, we bounced back from losing to Rangers better than you bounced back from beating us. So.
Yeah.
And the episode you missed is the episode where Rangers beat Celtic.
I know.
Show for 2 weeks. I know. Come back on.
I know.
Honestly, I don't even know if you want to enjoy yourself, to be honest.
Any gloating you want to do? Anything you want to do? I mean, I know you're
get off your chest. Go on.
13 points behind, but
just Nico asking masterclass. But no, it was obviously I was in the airport listening to it, and I thought I've missed this one. It's the one episode where I could go on grinning like a Cheshire cat, and I've messed it up by going on a plane. So, but I had a nice week in the sun though, so swings and roundabouts.
Quick recap of obviously it's been a couple of weeks since we did our last podcast, but quick recap of Celtic and Rangers results. Obviously both teams played in the Scottish Cup, where we've just covered. Any concerning performances, Pat?
Yeah, I mean the Celtic's defence decided not to play against Dundee in a 3-3 draw at Dens. Dundee have done well against Celtic and Rangers in recent weeks, but I don't know if you guys saw the clip of Rodgers calling Trusty weak as piss.
No, I've not seen that.
You don't need to be an expert lip reader to realise that's what he was saying. Trusty gets bullied off the ball for one of the... I can't remember which Dundee goal it was, to be fair, but it cut the Sky cameras cut to Rodgers after it, and you can see him just shaking his head and going weak as piss. So everyone thought that would be Scales back in. Austin Trusty bombed out again, but that didn't transpire. Trusty's still in the team. That was definitely the strangest, weirdest performance from Celtic in recent weeks. Apart from that, it's been good. Like, we only beat Kilmarnock 2-1 in the Cup, but I thought it was much more like it from Celtic. And the atmosphere at Celtic Park was better because there was a bit of jeopardy, with Kilmarnock getting the equaliser. Game was under the lights. there was a bit of threat involved because we could get eliminated from a cup. I think there's a degree of complacency and maybe flatness creeping into some of the league games because we're so far ahead. I'm not saying that's an excuse, but I think it's
that's natural human instinct, though, isn't it? It's very
I think
difficult
so.
not to do that.
But I think the atmosphere at league games is suffering as a result, to the extent that the Green Brigade have released a statement, a leaflet that they handed around the stadium at Celtic Park, asking fans to be a bit more present in the games, stay off phones, clap along to songs, join in with songs, back the team, stop leaving before the final whistle. And to be honest, I agree with the sentiment of it.
Did they use the other half of that leaflet to say to stop singing songs about Kieran Tierney?
No, we'll start singing songs about Kieran Tierney when he comes back.
Leaflet sponsored by Greg Taylor.
That's a rapid whistle stop tour of Celtic's recent weeks. Loads of good sort of good routine wins. Shaky.
Just kind of counting down to getting up back into speed for European.
Well, at the time of recording, tomorrow's probably our biggest game of the season. It's unfortunate that the recording this time has fallen just before the Young Boys game, which is
or fortunate for you. Whichever way you look at it, by close of play tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, there's no point previewing it in too much detail because by the time this comes out, the game will be hours away. But it is a monumentally huge game. If we win, we're as good as into the next stage, a Champions League playoff. If we transpire to lose to the team that I think are currently bottom of the Champions League table, although they've had a new manager in, he's changed their style.
Sounds like
the old manager was sacked. It feels very Celtic and Europe. This it feels really shaky. So yeah, on the eve of Celtic's biggest game of the season, it's been a wee bit flat, but maybe signs of encouragement against Kilmarnock. So yeah, we move on. How are Rangers doing, Scott?
As you expect, basket case. Obviously, just before the Celtic game, we've lost, to St Mirren, and then Motherwell. You're thinking,
what was that, sorry?
Yeah, I'm saying we lost to St Mirren before the Celtic game. Drew with Motherwell. I'll repeat it, and then you're thinking, right, disaster, and then go out and put a performance against Celtic, and then top of the, to top that off, you're thinking, right, brilliant momentum, and then we do a Rangers thing and we go ahead against Hibs. I mean, Hibs did, very true, Pat. So it's been one of those turbulent times.
That game when you weren't here.
Yeah,
just me and the other guy.
But it's just, what I mean? It's like you go and put a performance in against Celtic, and just when you think you've got a glimmer of hope, you get back-to-back draws, and you're right back to where you start. So
I love that. I love that since you've been on this episode, you've had 2 Rangers strikers scores 2 hat tricks.
I know, and
still you're further away from Celtic.
It's bonkers. I mean, it's like Egerman's like, what more do I need to do to get this team up the points table? But I just
how much
think,
of an improvement has he made to the overall team, though, Scott? Like, I know he's scoring goals, and we've had debates about Dessers scores goals, but does he actually improve the team?
I think so. I think if you watch, I think Rangers look a more fluid team especially when him and Danilo are playing alongside each other. I think there's a lot more movement, a bit more quickness, sharpness about them. Things don't break down as easy. I think what has been our downfall in those last games is Clement has kind of tweaked it. He went back to playing 1 up front, whereas what's worked for us is the 2 up front. And Danilo's movement's really good. Egerman can chest anything with, the boy's unbelievable. And I think he just offers a lot more solidity. I don't know, it's just Rangers this season, isn't it? It's just very hit or miss.
You're going to be playing against the worst Man United team in history on Thursday. So
yeah, I was just going to get into that.
The worst Rangers team in history versus the worst Man United team in history. It should be
might not be the worst Rangers team in history, but it's close. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very interesting time against Man United. Their new manager bounce has not lasted very long. Ahmed Diallo, former Ranger, well done, is the only one that's keeping them afloat right now. So
I can't believe that's the same player, by the way.
I know it's people obviously
score against his old club though, can't he?
And then he's going to get slated like Andy Halliday. Oh, sorry. While we're on that subject, what about the boy that scored for Dundee that didn't celebrate scoring against it?
That was pathetic.
I mean, I mean, Andy Halliday gets slated, and he has a right to not celebrate because that's his former team. But this boy,
they bleach for their cause.
because he's a Celtic boy, and I don't like scoring against. I mean, that's pathetic. So,
Get a grip of yourself, eh?
Exactly. You're a professional. Score, celebrate.
I flash forward to Thursday when Ahmed Diallo scores against you, celebrates, and you're like, that's ridiculous. How dare you?
No, I will say. Do you know what my
You're a
response
Rangers
is?
son.
Do you know what my response to be that would be like? He was badly mistreated, so fair play.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
obviously it's very well documented. This isn't a Man United podcast, and it's
Oh,
not
is
as
it
if
not?
their environment is
What gave that away?
There's no Mark
Their
Gobridge.
environment is one of free flowing
No.
football and players feeling loved, but it's crazy that a player who really struggled that much against the likes of Hibs, Hearts, Motherwells, etc., is now playing at the Premier League. And Man United are 13th, 14th, but he looks like their best player. It is
Listen, there's a
mental.
bunch of players that have notoriously struggled at Celtic and Rangers, and then he can do it down south because they can't.
No,
do the pressure.
there's usually been the reverse. They've had really successful careers and then struggled at Rangers and Celtic. Where this boy's like struggled, you would probably have pegged him being playing for like Alex Lowry, Wycombe Wanderers sort of level now, and look where he is. It's crazy.
I know. The thing is, I think as well is, I think at the time we got him, it's obviously just a young lad's trying to make his breakthrough in senior football.
He just cost 30 million from.
I know that's the thing is, but then it's like it's not really his fault when Man United paid ridiculous sums of money for bang average players.
You don't say no to the wages, though, do you?
No, you won't say no, but I don't think you can label the price tag at the boy. I think at the time you think, oh, right, okay, it's a good signing, but it just never worked out. And obviously, Scott Wright started a European final over him, so
that's crazy. Speaking of players that went to progress their careers down south and are moving back north of the border, still no
lovely
news.
link. Lovely link.
Beautiful, yeah, absolutely beautiful. Who says we don't prepare these episodes, eh? KT, Paddy Boy, still no news. Seems to have been gone a bit quiet, and then quiet on the whole Celtic front, to be honest.
Oh, we're back to Celtic.
Back to board at the window. Green Brigade flyers
already. Get the sharks ready.
Green Brigade flyers already bought for next week.
I've stolen a parking barrier from outside my flat and I'm ready to go and launch it.
Do you think the KT thing's cool from Celtic side, or do you think it's anything to do with Arsenal's current predicament?
I'd say at this point I'm still 90% confident Tierney will be a Celtic player by the end of the month. There's a few things I think have stalled it. I think Arsenal's injuries have meant that he actually has been required for a couple of Arsenal squads and played a couple of games. So you can't negotiate contracts when you're training in match preparation and travelling for football. Also, we recorded in this on the 21st of January. Bernabe has only just been announced as leaving Celtic, who is our other left back. Believe it or not, we've made a profit on Bernabe. He's been sold for $5 million to the I forget the Brazilian club he's currently on at. I forgot he existed.
He's done really well there, hasn't he?
By all accounts, yeah, he's been all right. But I mean, that $5 million you think will be redirected to hopefully covering the Tierney initial loan fee and then some wages. Yeah, precisely. So I think it will get done. I think there's a few complications probably that Celtic are working out, i.e. what happens to Greg Taylor. Because we can't afford to lose him if Tierney comes back up, as we discussed in the last episode, Steve. And I suppose if people haven't listened to that one, go back and check it out because that goes into the KT situation in a bit more depth. But I think it's still going to happen. As for the wider lack of activity with Celtic, I wonder if they're actually waiting to find out how the result goes against Young Boys in Europe.
Good point.
And see if we've secured that next phase of Champions League football.
You could make an argument you don't really need Kieran Tierney if you don't qualify, or you don't need any players if you don't qualify. So save the money
and just get him on a pre-contract and let him see the season.
Let's be honest, you're going to win the league. You're probably going to right now. I mean, unless you play Rangers, then chances of getting to a Scottish Cup final at least are pretty high. Why would you sort of sign players? I know we've had this argument before, but
I don't want to go over stuff we've already covered. But I think I'm a bit frustrated because you'd have thought if the deal could get done by now, Tierney could play against Young Boys tomorrow night, at the time of recording, and then play against Aston Villa. And it's really frustrating not to have him available for that game. I still think he'd sign. I still think there's merit to Tierney joining Rodgers working out how to integrate Tierney into the current team. Yeah.
Just quickly on it, because we obviously missed Scotty from the last episode. It'd be interesting to get a Rangers fans' perspective. What's your viewpoint on KT possibly going back to Celtic? Does it fill you a little bit dread, or
not really? No.
Any thoughts on it?
No, he is a good player, but obviously he's made of chocolate. So I heard he pulled his hammy going on the bus. So I mean,
No, that was you, mate.
no, I've got no legs, mate. I lost mine in Gran Canaria, so I was cutting about in a scooter. But no, it doesn't overly faze me. It doesn't worry me. I'm more concerned with the direction of my football club and who we're signing or what. We've got enough problems to worry about than looking at Celtic. I think Kieran Tierney is a fantastic player, and okay, adds a bit more than Greg Taylor. Well, a lot more than Greg Taylor. So from that, I think in the past couple of games against Celtic, you obviously can see that the left-hand side of Celtic is the trigger for Rangers to press with Scales and Taylor. So might have to kind of change how we approach that game, but I'm not overly concerned about him coming back.
Speaking of concentrating on your own club, Scotty.
Yes.
This is a bit of a tangent, but do you think the Rangers fans still don't do walking away, or?
It depends on who you ask. It depends if the subway's
he's got no legs apparently.
I have to roll away now, but no, I think it depends on what section of support you ask. If it's a Subway loyal, the Subway's due in 10 minutes, so they need to bolt.
What about the Union Bears?
I have no issue with that. Honestly, I think as a protest goes, I think you pay your money.
You should do walking away.
Do you want to go in a little bit more depth of what the protest was about?
I think it should be more than just being crap. I think the whole club has been run shoddily for years. It's been mismanagement after mismanagement. I've mentioned that a few times in previous episodes, and I think
just a few.
But I think that's what it comes down to. We had that really successful run. After Gerrard 55, we got to the Europa League final. We sold 2 players for record profits. We got to the final. There was an abundance of money there, and then that has just dissipated. We've not seen the fruits of that labour or anything. We've heard for years now about this player trading model. It's never come to fruition. So I think the protest is on the back of lowering of standards.
But you must be happy. You must be happier that the signings maybe in the last 6 months have gone up a level, and that'll just take a little bit of time to embed in. But
I was just going to get to that. I think what the problem and frustration that we're seeing. I think you look at Igaman, Yefte, they seem good players. Nsiala, they're Diamande, all very capable players, good players. They just need a wee bit of time to bed in, to get used to the physicality of Scottish football. That probably some of them have never played 3 high intense games in a week, so that takes a bit of time getting used to as well. So, but I think what the problem is, we're still seeing the effects of the Rabi Matondos, the Kieran Dowells, like that. I think that's where the frustration is. It's been those types of signings, and what we're trying to do in it. I do like the direction that we appear to be going down. It's the signing like Rafa Fernandez, for example. Those are the type of signings that we need to be focusing on. Young players that maybe.
Is that not you just building up a player because you're hopeful?
No. What I'm saying is, like, you look at, like, say for. You look at Nsiala, you look at Rafa Fernandez, not to put any pressure, but I think these players get hoovered up by the biggest teams in other leagues, right? Because they're presenting a wee bit of opportunity, or they look quite good. They maybe don't get the same opportunities, but doesn't mean they're a bad player. So we can offer that avenue to showcase them, keep them for 2-3 years, build them up, and then punt them when their stock's high.
Yeah, but you're so... On one side, Scotty, you started this episode where Pat was giving you a compliment for playing youth players.
Yep.
And then on the same hand, you're also saying you would like to sign players to then
but
get them to a level and then punt them out. So there's only 11 spaces in a team every week, mate. So what do you want? You can't have your cake and eat it.
No, I understand what you're saying,
and I would just like to. I'm going to go for Rangers fans a little bit because I'm sick of it. I actually think you are a bang out order with the way you have conducted yourselves over the last couple of months when it comes to your players.
Including yourself in that, Steve.
Steve's been leading the charges,
and you've now had a situation where you've basically abused your captain getting off a bus, to which statements were then made from there. Leon Balogun, who's obviously a very well respected Rangers player, coming out and saying that is extremely disrespectful. In regards to Cyril Dessers getting booed by your fans.
Listen, I've just jumped back in. I might have an opinion on Cyril Dessers. I don't think he's good enough to be a number 1 Rangers striker, right? But I think he still plays for this club. He still gives it his best. It might not be good enough. It might not be what we want. It might not be anything spectacular, but still plays for Rangers. He's always available. He's not coming throwing his toys out the pram and saying I'm not playing. You know, like look at Todd Cantwell. You know, like decide to just not show up for 3 months.
Yeah.
I agree with it. I think the treatment, as in terms of booing when he comes, what are you playing at? There's no need for that. That's ridiculous. And I 100% agree with you that if that's your cause of action, you should have a look at yourself. It's different saying that he's not good enough to be a Rangers player. That's different.
Imagine Rangers
but like
the day that King scores for Rangers.
But in all seriousness, I just think that's a terrible thing. I'm trying really hard not to swear. It's my New Year's resolution. I'm trying not to swear on the podcast. I think it's a disgrace to do that. I don't think it covers yourself, us as a fan base, or the club in glory. It doesn't do us any favours, and it doesn't help the player. You know, what's he thinking? Well, what's the point in trying? And
I don't imagine the atmosphere it then creates in the dressing room, and then if you're trying to sign other players as well, like they'll be looking
exactly.
at that. If I'm a player and I'm decent enough now and I've got a chance to sign for Rangers, you would look at that and be like,
I'm not doing, but I understand, right? And I think I've said this to you boys before. Sorry to go off on a wee bit of a tangent, but I'll end it after this. But I think the problem with Rangers been built on success, right? And it's been that, you know, first is everything.
Like 30 years ago.
All right, son, whatever. But anyway, it's still built on success, right? And it's the mentality is first is everything, second is nothing, right? And I think
built on asbestos.
Going to just shut up, Pat, and let me. All right, thank you. This is a nice episode. We're trying to keep things calm. Because it's been so long since a sustained period of success. That's when the frustration comes. That's why they're going for players. And it's not right that they go and boo a player, but at the same time, I think they're right to demand a better level of success, a better level of product, what they're seeing on and off the field. I think we as Rangers Football Club should be held to the highest standards. We as the people of Rangers,
Well, hang on a minute. You said I was entitled and I needed to have a reality check for asking for the same thing.
But my point with you and your fan base, right, is I can't swear, so I need to do something, right? So my point
on the screen 5 minutes.
My point to you was basically that you had went on such a run of continued success that 1 year of a challenge and you threw everything at your board. That was why I said you're entitled, not for demanding.
We're not allowed to.
No, you are, but the way you went about it, though, but the way you went about it, chucking, you're talking about booing Rangers players. No, it's
2-0 and Dest scored a hat-trick.
Yeah, but hang on, right? My point, we booed one player. You chucked missiles at a bus containing your captain and a bunch of other players. So don't come at me and say, "Oh, yous are bad and we're right," because we're both sets of supporters are just as mental as each other.
Yeah, Celtic hand out flyers now, though, telling fans how to conduct themselves. So
it's better than walking away after 55 minutes, isn't it?
As a protest.
Best and worst January signings.
Oh God! Right.
The most memorable. Scotty, you're on a wee rant, so on you go, mate. You keep those shoulders moving.
I've just went for the last 5 years. I thought I'll keep it nice and
your new club.
simple. Yeah. I can't remember anyone that's not been signed in the last. So I just recent memory
since your last title.
Yeah. I think the one that comes to mind is Aaron Ramsey.
Yeah,
it's probably one of in recent history probably one of the worst. Come with a massive pedigree.
He stepped up and took a penalty though.
He did. I hadn't finished my point.
Sorry, carry on.
Okay, thank you. In terms of how we all know his Rangers career turned out, it's maybe one of the worst. But I think there's a right back we signed in January, Mateusz Zakowski, Polish, and I made 2 or 3 appearances, and then it was sold that summer. So it's like that's got to be one of the worst signs. And then Jack Simpson, I think this.
Who?
Just exactly. So it was a defender, but it didn't really do much. Another one of those like.
I mean, did they cost you anything?
No. Still a terrible signing though.
Not like Todd Cantwell or any of these boys. The boys have been rinsing your coffee fetty gander. You've just gone for a young boy called Jack Simpson. But youth players play for Rangers, please.
They have to be signed in January to be.
No, but Aye, exactly. Well, no, Todd Cantwell
Todd
was signed in
Cantwell
January,
was.
but
Was he?
I don't
Yeah.
think he was the worst. He did contribute at times. I don't think he's the worst signing. I think he's a great
TikTok videos like.
Aye, TikTok Todd. Him and Kyogo are best pals.
Who's saying it now?
It's no longer a
Best
Rangers
please,
player.
Scotty. Best please.
Best from the current kind of crop in the last kind of more recent time. You said it, mate. You got it. Hadji, I think Raskin as
Your
well.
best
Is up there.
signing is a boy who cannot play for Rangers in Europe because you left him at the squad.
And it's my opinion. My opinion. On recent times, I'm saying Hadji. I've only gone for the last 5 January windows, so you know.
Scotty.
What's wrong with that?
Well, listen, it's your opinion, mate.
That says it all, doesn't it?
Paddy boy.
I'm going to let you guys decide which of these 4 that is the worst, because I can't. You've got Colin Chasm Richards.
Oh,
Christ.
superb.
He was good everywhere else.
Willow
though.
Flood. Absolutely honking. Jeremy Toljan.
Who?
Yeah.
And this is probably the winner. Marvin Comper. The guy that I think we paid £1 million for. He had 1 cap for Germany.
Is that a defender?
Came in centre half, played 60 minutes for Celtic, and then stayed unplayed for about 2.5 years after that.
Jesus.
I think that's got in terms of his overall contribution.
What did Colin Kazim Richards cost you? Or was he just loan?
I don't know, but
just the wages he would have been on, eh?
I just admit,
he was a good player. He had a lot of good attributes.
About 10 years before we signed him, I don't know what Celtic were playing at. I can't remember if Carlton Cole was a January signing, but if he was, he'd be up there. Yeah,
he'd be up there as well. I'm going to go Colin Kazim Richards, because I actually forgot he played for you, and just as an overall signing, he would have been on some money, that boy.
Absolute bonkers signing.
Best, mate.
The best. I mean, this was what was interesting, actually, was researching it. For all Celtic, I mean, Celtic's list of bad January transfer signings is longer, but there's a few crackers in the good ones. Mm-hmm. So Chris Commons.
Yep.
Came in and did brilliantly for Celtic.
Good One player of the year over Van Dijk.
Robbie Keane. I mean, we didn't win the league that year, but he revitalised the team and scored about 14 goals in 5 months. Lee Griffiths signed in January. Which
also, by the way, just quickly, I'm really surprised you didn't say, does Roy Keane come in January?
He could be one of the worst.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I was expecting him in the worst, but...
Keano's...
Me and Kino, best pals.
He was done at that point. He's just scared because Roy's at his door and like saying anything against me.
He dominated the game against Rangers, so he doesn't fall into the flop category.
Okay.
The January transfer window under Ange, where we brought in Maida, O'Reilly, and Hatate. I mean,
O'Reilly's
O'Reilly, I think, has to be the winner. But then another shout out for Bellamy. But quite a similar signing to Robbie Keane. He came in and was unbelievable, but not quite enough for us to win the league.
Any Rangers players you've signed in the last 5 years that you've sold successfully, Scott?
I'll crack the jokes, mate. No. I mean, we brought Todd Cantwell and combined fee between him and Lammers, and it was 810.
Lammers.
£810,000.
Episodes how I've missed it. Well, listen, we are restricted always restricted in Scotland when it comes to January transfer window with how clubs are performing in Europe, etc. And obviously with the domestic league being what it is, you can't really go out and just spend £5 million. And speaking of domestic leagues and Rangers and Celtic, I'm sure you boys will have seen the news this week that there has been a little bit of furore around Rangers and Celtic potentially proposing that their women's teams join the English division. Now, obviously, it's in a similar setup to what happened with the Premier League in the early 90s. It's obviously been taken over last year and reformatted slightly, and there has been tentative talks apparently taking place for Celtic and Rangers to join that. It's obviously been something we've talked about on here from a men's games point of view, and a lot of the debate's been around this kind of too late for Rangers and Celtic men's teams to maybe move down south. What are your opinions on the women's teams moving south, and do you think it would grow the fan bases?
I think it would maybe increase attendances if some of the bigger women's clubs were coming up to play, at Celtic. Chelsea women came up and played at Celtic Park in the Champions League this season in a game where Chelsea won 2-1. So I think it shows that Celtic women could hold their own. in the league. I don't know if it would increase Celtic women's fan base. It'd obviously increase their revenue. And maybe
it'd give you more of an outreach into getting new fans abroad, etc. It's one of the fastest growing leagues in the world.
I think to be honest, I think it's a non-starter. I think the WSL have already come back and said that they're not for it. I don't think there's any way the Scottish Women's League would allow their two biggest assets to head off, because Celtic and Rangers, let's be honest, they win 7 or 8 or 9 or even 10 or 11 or 12-0 every week. They are the elite teams in the division, along with Glasgow City. So I struggle to see anyone agreeing to it and how it benefits Scottish.
I'd like to see. I don't. The one thing I don't really understand is that this remit that the Scottish league structure and the SFA can deny them. Like, you can withdraw from a league participation. So if they do that, and the WSL, the Women's Super League, allow those conversations to happen where they can join, then.
Well, I don't know the legalities of it. I don't know if you can withdraw a league. I don't know what contracts are signed. But if the Women's Super League in England are against it, I think it's a non-starter. And I think it might become a bigger issue if it does progress, because that would pave a pathway for the men to explore the same option. And I think there would be, understandably, a bigger outcry about that.
Scotty, about your opinions, mate?
It's hard to disagree with a lot of what Pat's saying, but I do think I agree with your point about there would be an increase in the overall awareness of Rangers and Celtic women's team, and it might grow the attendances. But I don't think they need the support, because obviously they're part of the wider Rangers support. So I think it would be an interesting move, though. I do think if it was to come off, it would open up an avenue potentially in a 10-year period or something for Rangers and Celtic, the men's team, to explore that option. It's an interesting one to keep an eye on, though. I think, like you said at the beginning of the point, Steve, it's very reminiscent of Rangers and Celtic at the beginning of the early days of the Barclays Premiership. Do you mean?
It reminds me of the European Super League, to be honest, a little bit. I just think that clubs buying the way out of a contract in a league and then trying to move another. I don't know.
Welsh teams have done it successfully down in English, and they've been part of the overall wider structure. They've just done it for a lot longer, so it doesn't seem like it's as fresh in the memory. So I was just re-jogging my memory there. It's actually apparently it's Rangers who have started to conduct talks with the FA directly. About it, and there is chat that the WSL would open their arms to it if it commercially made sense, obviously. And from their point of view, you can understand two more big clubs with big fan bases to join the league. I
was just about to say that I think from a commercial point of view, from them, they would be foolish not to at least look at it and crunch some numbers over, because the two clubs are well supported.
If it did happen, and the women's game's obviously growing massively. I mean, a lot of the fixtures are now played at Hampden.
I think it's the fastest growing sport in Europe, or the world, maybe.
You can see it getting to a stage where the WSLs are actually making more money than the men's SPL. So the Rangers and Celtic in the women's game are actually open to more commercial opportunities than Rangers and Celtic's men's team, even though the attendances and those following that league is bigger domestically. And that would cause significant problems for Rangers and Celtic in the Scottish Premier League. And I think it would open a door to you guys leaving for either the Super League or the Premier League, and it would be used as the
springboard
to do so. And also, to be honest with you, again, the SFA have only got to look at themselves, because they refuse to put things in place to allow the Scottish game to grow. I mean, we've obviously had Caitlin Hayes message us about different things, and I know that was to do with the clubs, but the SFA done absolutely nothing to solve those situations to grow the game in this country. So you can understand to an extent why Rangers and Celtic are looking at it. And you've been listening to The Boy and the Bear. It's actually our resident boy who's going to be leaving us for the next month. As he, where are you going, Pat?
I'm going on my honeymoon to Japan. I'm going to scouting mission for Celtic.
So it will be probably March when we're back online, back with trivia. We've got some guests lined up as well, some really interesting guests as well. In the meantime, we will be putting some videos up, so please follow us on our social media channels. We are most active on Instagram and TikTok. And Scotty, your email address please, mate, for any questions or queries.
You can email your questions and queries to theboyandthebear@gmail.com.
Listen, boys, I'll catch you soon. It's been an absolute pleasure. Paddy
See
boy,
you
and
in a month,
enjoy your
boys.
holiday.
See you in a month, mate. Enjoy yourself.
Will do. Hail, hail.
Follow.
Until the 55th minute.